Hi, I'm Dada Nabhaniilananda, also known as the Monk Dude. And I'm a writer, musician, meditation instructor, and a spiritual teacher. Today I'm talking about emotional resilience. If you want to know what I mean by that, I think it's best illustrated by this cool story I once read in a book called Zen and the Art of Archery by Eugene Herrigel, who was a German businessman and one of the first Westerners to write about Zen meditation. When he was still just a businessman, he traveled to Tokyo. I think this was in the early 1960s. Traveled there to a business conference, and he was at a meeting at the top of a skyscraper in Tokyo, and there was an earthquake. Now, he was from Germany. There aren't very many earthquakes in Germany. He was not accustomed to this, and it was quite a severe earthquake, and there was a lot of shaking, and he was really terrified, and even the other people in the conference were really sort of frightened and everything. But in the midst of his terror, he noticed one man sitting with his eyes closed and just looking completely calm. And he was kind of shocked. So afterwards, when they were all recovering, he approached him and asked him, "What are you doing?" And the Japanese man said, "Well, I'm a Zen Buddhist, and I was meditating." And Herrigel asked him, "Well, what does that mean?" And he said, "Well, I was identifying with that part of myself which is unassailable." This idea had such a deep impression on Eugene Herrigel that he actually decided to study Zen, and he was inspired to become a Zen Buddhist himself, study Zen and the art of archery, and write a book about it, and that became a huge part of his life, and it became a very famous book. The idea of somebody being calm in the midst of a storm, I think it might seem relevant to a lot of people in the business world. Often things seem difficult, out of control, hard to manage, and maybe the crises come up sometimes. If you can remain calm in the midst of that, then everybody will kind of look to you. I have a friend who he works in a company. It's a small company, and they were going through a crisis of their own, and they weren't even sure if the company would survive. But he told me that their CEO, which is somebody he respects very much, when she came into the room with just the group of them, she was always calm. Even if everybody else was worried, anxious, afraid they weren't getting enough business, they just wasn't working, she was always calm and had a positive outlook, and that reassured the rest of them. So having that quality of calm is a tremendously powerful quality, especially for a leader, and especially if you're somebody who's counseling or advising others. Because if they can feel that in you, that kind of confidence, then that will be infectious and they'll feel it as well. So the first thing, that the outcome, if you like, of emotional resilience is the ability to remain calm under fire. The second outcome of emotional resilience is clarity. Now, if you can develop this kind of clarity or self-awareness so that your own thinking becomes clear, so that you're not confusing yourself, so your emotions aren't disturbing you and interrupting your thought process or distorting your judgment, then you again become a much better decision maker, obviously, and also, again, a much better leader. If you make decisions that are kind of dispassionate and aren't influenced by your own preferences or biases or your own feelings, people will trust you more because they'll feel that you'll be fair and your decisions will be wise. You'll get the reputation of a wise leader or somebody who thinks with clarity and makes decisions on that basis. It also makes you less judgmental of yourself, because you're not going to get all out of perspective sort of ideas about you make a mistake and it becomes a huge deal when really it's not. Or again, you won't tend to blame other people so much. You'll be more understanding. And this, of course, improves your relationships. If you're more tolerant, you can understand, if people make mistakes, that's life, as long as they learn for them. If you have that kind of attitude of not making people feel that they're being judged harshly, again, people will trust you, and then everything flows. Another great outcome of emotional resilience is perspective. When your mind is calm and you're able to sort of step back and sort of get the big picture on what you're doing on your work, on what impact it might have in the long term, then little ups and downs that come and people get all upset about, you've got a bigger perspective on that, and you understand that in life and in business, there are always going to be ups and downs, and there's no point in reacting to that in a disproportionate way. So again, it enables you to remain calm when circumstances may not be so favorable, because you remember that this is just one little glitch in what may be, a long journey, and hopefully an upward leading one. So perspective is critical, and it can make all the difference to your decision making, your view, your feeling of motivation. You don't get discouraged nearly so easily, and that kind of enthusiasm, continued enthusiasm and positivity is also very, very motivating and infectious for other people in your team. And the fourth big outcome of emotional resilience is greater happiness. There's been an idea in psychology for a long time that once we reach maturity, we pretty much have a baseline of happiness. And it may be high or low. I mean, there are some people that would say, well, I'm a kind of depressive kind of person, just that's who I am. Or there may be people who seem naturally upbeat and always sort of see the bright side of everything. That's who they are. The big news that's come more recently, and this has been measured and tracked with a lot of research, is that this baseline of happiness, which they thought was kind of fixed once you reached adulthood, can actually be raised or lowered. And one of the most effective ways of raising that baseline of happiness is meditation and mindfulness. You'll find that if you meditate regularly over a long period, gradually your baseline of happiness that you return to when circumstances are kind of normal becomes better and better over time. I've certainly experienced that in my own life. So if one of the big outcomes, one of the big benefits of meditation and mindfulness practice is this emotional resilience, which gives you the ability to remain calm in spite of maybe crazy circumstances. It gives you clarity, it gives you perspective, and it can gradually over time increase your baseline happiness. Doesn't that sound nice?